Chapter 21. On April 24th, 1996, in response to an anonymous phone tip, the Modesto Police Department finally located, identified, and arrested Grattan at his Tully Road apartment on the north side of Modesto. He was taken to the Stanislaus County Jail, booked on a 3056 parole violation, and transferred to Dual Vocational Institute in Tracy. Grattan was strip searched, housed in K-Wing, and placed on the affiliated yard list. Once settled into his cell, he quickly made his presence known by contacting Daniel Little Happy Escobar, who informed him that Richard R.B. Gagadas from Stockton was the overall authority in charge of K-Wing. Grattan knew Gagadas, and although Grattan was the higher-ranking member, he knew his stay in Dual was temporary and decided to function as a regimental advisor instead of taking the reins of power from Gagadas. After contacting Gagadas, Grattan informed that the two other Familianos, Henry Big Happy Cervantes from Lodi and Robert Carnicas Juarez from Stockton, were also at Dual. Grattan told Gagadas that he would remain in charge and that Cervantes would be second in command. However, Grattan trusted Juarez the most. He knew he could count on Juarez and gave him an updated report on what had been happening within the penal system, who was where, and all the latest pertaining to the streets of Stockton. Within the reports written by Juarez, Grattan learned that Gagadas was facing 25 years to life for the murder of Endora Russo, the prostitute found stabbed to death under a Stockton bridge, that George G.Q. Quinones had turned state evidence against Gagadas, and that the FBI had placed Henry Big Happy Cervantes from Lodi under investigation for his alleged involvement in a San Diego bank robbery that had occurred a few months earlier. Juarez also gave Grattan a newspaper article which read in part, FBI authorities continue to crack down on prison gangs in Stockton on Wednesday by arresting one alleged former gang leader by bringing new charges against a former leader already jailed, the FBI said. Authorities on Wednesday arrested David Marquez, 29, of Stockton, whom they described as a former leader of the Stockton branch of the Nuestra, an affiliate of the Nuestra Familia. Along with Marquez, Andrew Mad Dog Cervantes was indicted on charges of conspiracy and conducting a criminal enterprise through robberies, drugs, trafficking, and acts of soliciting murders in Stockton, Sacramento, and other Northern California cities. The article concluded with, in late September, a San Joaquin County jury convicted Nuestra Familia member Richie Boy Gagadas of first-degree murder of witness Endora Russo of Stockton. If convicted, Cervantes faces a possible maximum sentence of life in prison, while Marquez faces a maximum of 20 years. After reading this newspaper article, Grattan knew that all of the Familianos mentioned in it were in big-time trouble. The majority definitely faced very serious time. It wasn't a big secret Andrew Mad Dog Cervantes was a high-ranking NF member, and practically everyone knew he was heavily involved in the San Jose indictments. Cervantes, one of the FBI's primary targets, was sure to get a life sentence. Gagadas knew he was facing an uphill battle. With George G.Q. Quinones turning state's evidence, there was a good possibility that he would spend the rest of his life in prison. The FBI had done its homework, and these were some major arrests, with David Joker Marquez making history as the first Nuestra Raza member ever charged in a federal indictment. He was sure to be used by the FBI as an example and would more than likely receive a substantial sentence. As stated in the article, the FBI was indeed cracking down on the NF's leadership. Stockton was now considered just as hot as San Jose. It didn't take Grattan long to decide it was in his best interest to avoid Stockton altogether once he got back on the streets. Too many NF members were being sentenced to spend the rest of their lives in prison, and he didn't want to be one of them. 2 weeks later, Grattan attended a parole board hearing where he received a 1-year sentence for violating parole. He stayed in Tracy for approximately 2 more months and was then transferred back to Pelican Bay to finish his term. On his first day at PBSP, Pelican Bay State Prison, prison officials informed him that Rubalcaba had specifically requested that the two be housed in adjacent cells. Although Grattan had to that point been uncertain of Rubalcaba's actual position within the organization, he He now concluded that they must be a position of extreme power, given his ability to influence prison officials. Grattan was, in fact, housed next to Rubalcaba, and the two were finally introduced. He was then celled with Daniel Achille Hernandez, a fellow NF member from Pittsburgh, California. Lizard. Lizard. Operation Black Widow. He learned that the Northern structure was in the midst of an internal makeover and that their rules, regulations, format, and bonds were all being reworded. An NR council was being established, and it was now mandatory to learn the Aztec language. A filter pertaining to these changes was passed around and read. I believe this filter right here is called El Norte Law. I might be wrong though. Let me see. Salutations, my fellow Norteños of our struggle. I come before all of you to address a few issues facing our direction and us. If we as a people are going to effectively raise the betterment of our people and ourselves, change must inevitably come about in order for us to advance. Now, after long contemplation and advancement, it is in our best interest to make these changes, specifically the format and bonds. We've undertaken a series of minor revisions and extensive additions or modifications in certain portions therein. Obviously, questions will come to mind upon reading them. I'll pinpoint and clarify so all can understand our purpose for this change. Briefly, during the past few years, the prison administration has been devising methods to halt our movement and basically locking up Norteños under the label Northern Structure / Nuestra Raza as a prison gang or organizational structure, and consequently is using the debriefing process as a tool to try to pressure us to surrender and bow down to them. This is a weapon that the system is using against us in our stand of unity and plight for equality and justice. In order to counter this strategy, we must continue to awaken the consciousness of our people and educate them to the true purpose and meaning of a Norteño. Although we did not make a lifetime commitment, we have dedicated ourselves to our people's movement and betterment like itself. Since our elders crossed over the so-called U.S. border, we've been labeled Norteños. During the course of our advancement to better ourselves, equality and justice, we are still confronted with the same obstacles as the system tries to connect us and label us affiliates, merely by certain word terminology within our concepts. Therefore, we need to understand what needs to be done to shield ourselves, as you will notice when you read the format and bonds that we're not trying to tear down what we've built and accomplished. Rather, we hold them in strong heart and with full knowledge so we can continue to strive and build our future. Therefore, in order for us to strengthen our beliefs, we must continue to do so as our format directs us to do by adopting new and more meaningful and fulfilling ideas. It is also noted that these changes extend to the new format foundation, which in effect, minor modifications, rephrasing will be made for our best interests and to properly align with our purpose of change. Specifically, Nuestra Raza and Bros will be deleted and amended. IG, Norteño Council, Norteño Administration, Norteño Teacher, Norteño, etc. Furthermore, those who take to heart our cause and desire to partake and embrace our people's struggle henceforth will be referred to as Norteños, Spanish. And the others who do not wish but want to remain close allies will be referred to as Northerners, English. No one is to change, modify, and delete or alter any portions therein without proper authorization from the Norteño Council. To do so will be considered as an act of treason. No, this is not the kite that I referenced that was labeled El Norte Law. This kite right here was in reference to dismantling the NR and some of the modifications that changed the terminology, no longer referring to as bros, as hermanos or bros. They were to be referred to as Norteños, and the non-affiliate Northerners, basically the Norteños, were referred to then as Northerners. The revision of the format and bonds would eventually lead to the disbanding of the NR altogether. See, that's what I'm saying. It was basically an attempt to dismantle the NR, but it was kind of between the lines. The NF, fed up with babysitting, wanted the authorities to think Northern structure was history. This filter was bound to be intercepted by authorities sooner or later, and this was the NF leadership's attempt to distance itself from the troublesome Northern structure. However, the NF planned to choose the NR's elite to function within NF. Therefore, in the meantime, a few changes were made. For example, the following sentence in the old format: once firmly established in the Pinta, our struggle will gradually expand to the streets, was replaced or reworded in the new format version to read: it is stipulated that the Norteño struggle is not in any form a prison gang and/or organization. Once a member of our struggle leaves to the streets, he takes with him better mental strength and knowledge he gained from his educational endeavors is a keen sense of direction in life. The Norteño label identification or identity, as in the Pinta, does not exist on the streets, rather solely his origin of citizenship. The rest of the format remained unchanged. Bond 13 was the only change in the 14 bonds. It was rewritten to read: a Norteño paroling to the streets will be educated to our prison conditions and circumstances. Therefore, understanding that it's not mandatory but strongly encouraged to aid two fellow soldados behind the walls in accordance to his financial abilities. Failure to recognize this will have an adverse effect on his status as an honorable Norteño upon his return. It's crucial and necessary if we are to continue forward with the advancement of the elite circle of dedicated Norteño soldados. With the NF demonstrating its power and control over NR, NF decided to establish a sophisticated NR chain of command, written as follows: Nuestra Raza's new chain of command, administrative level, Pelican Bay only. Nuestra Raza Council, NRC. The NRC consists of 6 members of the Nuestra Raza, handpicked and approved by the General of Prisons, the GOP. The NRC is responsible for directing the movement of Nuestra Raza. The NRC is a governing body under the supervision of the GOP. The NRC reports to the GOP on all matters pertaining to high-level security clearances, guidance, and advice. The NRC has the authority of deciding the course of the Nuestra Raza, especially in areas concerning the application or deleting of new or old ideas, which dictate the plight, be it long or short-term goals. With the GOP's approval, the NRC has the overall authority of the Nuestra Raza, as such, overall security, and making decisions concerning all Nuestra Raza incidents, affairs, events, or activities. Nuestra Raza Administration, NRA. The NRA consists of 6 members of the Nuestra Raza, handpicked and approved by the NRC. The NRA is responsible for the management and operation of the Nuestra Raza. The NRA handles all the rules and regulations and policies to set procedures, events, or activities the Nuestra Raza participates in. The NRA is responsible for assuring the program and guidelines set forth by the Nuestra Raza, by the NRC, so that it is compatible for all members. The NRA is responsible for acquiring and distributing efficiently the 4 major resources: human, information, financial, material, in such a manner that the whole group is equally balanced, with all of the necessities imperative to keeping productivity and order. Nuestra Raza teachers, maestros. The NRT consists of approximately 20 members of the Nuestra Raza, handpicked and approved by the NRA. 10 NRTs are in C facility, 1 per unit, as are another 10 in D facility, 1 per unit. Basically, the NRT is responsible for and supervising all manpower, NR and Norteños. The NRT oversees all manpower in his unit. He makes sure that all manpower under his authority is not only getting educated, but that they are following all household policies. The NRT has the authority to administer discipline for minor infractions of policies, but for anything involving the violation of a law, the NRT must go to the NRA for instructions. Note, The three above mentioned positions are for Pelican Bay use only. Any chain of command outside of Pelican Bay is considered regimental. Regimental level, outside of Pelican Bay only. Regimental Security Department, RSD. The RSD is solely responsible for the safety and security of all manpower in his regiment. The RSD has the responsibility of setting up a program in the best interest and welfare of the collective. It is the RSD's job to establish a foolproof security network as well as to maintain a productive regiment. Regimental Administrator, RA. The RA is responsible for the management of the regiment. The RA has the responsibility of requiring, rationing, and distributing all available resources. The RA has the task of establishing means of collecting all the resources necessary for the squad leaders to teach and continue to teach without the inconvenience of having to halt squad schooling due to lack of resources. The RA also has to handle all business transactions, such as selling or trading merchandise for merchandise or monetary funds. The RA has the responsibility of making sure all manpower is following all policies to set procedures and that the program is running smooth and satisfactory to all guidelines. Yard Security, YS. The YS is responsible for combing the yard for any foreign objects, for assigning manpower to security posts or sentries, and for making it safe to begin the exercise, education, and recreational activities on the yard. Overall Squad Leader, OASL. The OASL is responsible for establishing a variety of squads that offer all aspects of education to the regiment. The OASL is equivalent to that of a superintendent or principal. It's the OASL's job to make sure that his squad leaders are qualified and experienced in teaching the manpower appropriately and correctly so that members are learning to advance and improve in their education. Squad Leader, SL. The SL is responsible for teaching his squad. It's the SL's responsibility to make sure his squad is learning what he has to offer. The SL is also responsible for keeping track of all his students' learning abilities, or IQ, so that he can submit a progress report on everybody's capabilities. Squad Member, SM. The SM is responsible for learning and absorbing as much education as possible. If the SM is already well schooled, then it's his job to participate in assisting with his input on subjects being taught. The SM is to fall into the program set for the collective and follow the guidelines. The NF was attempting to make it appear that the NR was being completely disbanded, but in reality, it was just another front for NR to properly be restructured. NR members with less than 3 years of membership were required to have their membership reconfirmed, and all others were expected to understand and embrace the new regimental chain of command and the necessary qualifications to hold such positions. Furthermore, all NR members that held leadership positions were now required to possess a full and complete analytical comprehension of all of NR's literature and history, leadership skills, resource management, public relations and communication skills, weapon stock and warfare training, teaching and schooling abilities, decision-making experience. NF leadership devised a strict curriculum so that every NR member would be a potential NF recruit. This new NR schooling was known as the 7 phases of the NR and consisted of formatting bonds memorized, mandatory, NR language, Aztec and hand signs, mainline training, weapons and warfare tactics, legal law, evaluation and recruitment, street preparation. He knew there were some highly intelligent NF leaders, but he was speechless when given a copy of NF's newly revised constitution, which read, Nuestra Familia's newly revised constitution. God damn, here we go, man. I know this shit's dry, man, but you guys gotta bear with me, man. Let's get through this shit. Section 1. The supreme authority within this organization is divided into 3 separate offices, each office having equal authority with different responsibilities to carry out and fulfill the goals and objectives of the Nuestra Familia. Section 2. The 3 generals will have the power to carry out the daily affairs of this organization. They will always remain subordinate to the will of the inner council, which as a whole is the ultimate authority of this organization. Section 3. The appointed generals and inner council members must swear a new blood oath, having the sacred qualities of being seasoned, experienced, and dedicated Familianos. Section 4. No appointed general is to interfere or infringe on the other's respected office, but must work in hand for the betterment and will of this organization's advancement. Any and all major decisions that involve this organization as a whole must be brought forth and addressed to the General Council for review and a 3/4 majority approval. Section 5. The appointed generals solely have the authority to declare war. Peace will not prevail until the announcement from the General Council. Street Regimental General. Section 6. The office of the SRG is responsible for the security and overall street operations. Section 6A. To appoint any regiment security, the General Council must be informed of said member for screening and security clearance. The SRG has the authority to appoint regiment security during a state of emergency. Section 6B. The SRG will be responsible for maintaining order and contact to those appointed to regimental commanders under his authority overseeing street functions. Section 6C. The SRG is responsible for guidance and direction of all members leaving to the streets and all that will be assigned to a regiment once released from prison. Section 6D. The SRG will work in hand with the GOP for this purpose, keeping him updated on any member returning to prison. General of Prisons. Section 7. The office of the GOP is responsible for the security and overall prison functions. Section 7A. To appoint any security, any commanders within the prison, General Council must be informed of said member only for screening and security clearance. The GOP has the authority to appoint security commanders at all levels during a state of emergency within prison. Section 7C. The GOP will be responsible for the care, education, and direction of all members in prison. Section 7D. The GOP must work in hand with the SRG for this purpose and keep him updated of any member leaving to the streets. The GAO, General Advocate's Office. Section 8. The office of the GAO is the Justice Department and responsible for looking into any alleged constitutional violation and or any individual member suffering unjustly abuse of power. That's something I didn't get. I don't know where the fuck the GAO was during Boxer's Dilemma, but that motherfucker was nowhere to be found when I was going through my shit. Section 8. The GAO, upon receiving a complaint from any regiment, street, or prison, or from any individual member that the authority which he is under is unjustly using their power over them or him in an unconstitutional and personal conflict, the GOA will appoint soldados of his choice to investigate said complaint. They will speak with all parties involved and report to the GOA. Section 8B. The GAO, upon receiving said complaint, will place violations affecting a member. The scope and breadth of his investigation shall be limited to the special allegations and shall not stray from the original purpose. Section 9. Whenever the General Council becomes incommunicado, either permanently or temporarily, the General Council will assign from the ranks of said Cat 3 to either permanently or on an interim basis the best qualified the guardianship of the Nuestra Familia. This authority lies solely with the General Council. They decide the scope and breadth that the assigned Cat 3 shall serve in their absence. The decision is to be adhered to by all members. Section 9C. All Cat 3 in any established regiment shall always work in the best interest of the Nuestra Familia. They will act as advisors to the established RC when duly consulted. If any serious complaints arise, they must contact the SRG or the GOP. Depends on the RC's proper channel. If they cannot make contact with either the SRG or the GOP, they must contact the GAO, which shall address the problem. You guys got that shit? That's a lot of GOPs, SRGs. God damn. GAOs. Section 10. Whenever a Cat 3 assumes responsibility under the guise of dire emergency, he must, at his earliest opportunity, notify the proper channel with a clear and concise situation report. He will continue as such until ordered otherwise. Section 11. All Cat 3s are held to be of equal rank. Therefore, one cannot interfere or hinder another Cat 3 unless given specific orders to do so by the proper authority. Section 11. A. All Cat 3 answers to the General Counsel per se. Any abuse of responsibilities can and will result in permanent or temporary loss of said status. Article 3, Section 1. Cat 2 are of equal status. Their primary purpose is to work in hand towards the advancement, indoctrination, and preparation of Cat 1 members. Section 1A. For this purpose, it must be understood that this status does not imply or infer mandatory appointment to any higher authority or job. The responsibility of this Cat 2 status shall not abridge the right and authority of the SRG or the GOP to appoint their regimental commanders. Section 2. Furthermore, said members, according to their experience and leadership abilities, may be given RC positions and or delegated certain responsibilities, either of the high offices. Section 3. Said status demands proper conduct and dedication in striving to enforce the will and ethics of the Nuestra Familia. Their foresight and insight from Cat 3 and or appointed authority will set the course for the Cat 1 member who may fall under their direction. Section 4. Cat 2, although they are teachers and mentors in the preparation of Cat 1 members, will not interfere or infringe on any of the daily affairs of their respective regiments, RC. Their sole duty is to work towards the advancement and security of the organization's goals and objectives. Section 5. The status Cat 2 can only be achieved once a member has proven to this organization his trust, honor, and worthiness for the ability to uphold this honorable status. This status will remain regardless of his whereabouts. Section 6. Failure to uphold said duties or involvement in any unbecoming conduct will result in disciplinary action. Cat 2 must always work for the best interest to ensure the direction and will of their proper authority is followed, upheld, and honored. Article 4, Section 1. All requests for membership into the organization will be submitted to the RC. Any member can make such a request to sponsor an individual seeking membership. Said member must take full responsibility of his prospects. Section 2. Depending on the circumstance or seriousness of misinformation, any prospect seeking membership into this organization can be denied or expelled for misrepresenting or having false intentions. Section 3. Final decisions, stipulations on limitations with regard to the membership will be the General Counsel and those specifically designated with such authority. Section 4. All inductees into this organization will automatically be put through probation status for a minimum of 90 days. The maximum will be to ensure his indoctrination is done accordingly. Section 4A. Cat 1 members for the purpose of learning and understanding the duties and obligations of said commitment for the security and best interests of this organization and said member. No Cat 1 shall be advanced to a higher Cat status until his indoctrination process has been completed. Section 4B. All Cat 1 by Nuestra Familia definition are of equal status. Even when a Cat 1 has been given added responsibility from his proper authority, he cannot exceed the time limits of his status. Section 4C. Responsive obedience must be first and foremost in said Cat 1. Insubordination will not be tolerated. All officers of the Nuestra Familia being given proper respect and obedience from the Cat 1 member ensures that Cat 1 all unalienable rights and due process protection entitled to an honorable member. Section 5. All members shall and will be held responsible for their own personal conduct, and behavior of said member is unbecoming when it hinders the process of the Nuestra Familia. Said conduct are said to prevail when said member failed to recognize proper authority, failure to cooperate and compromise with fellow members, and when negative conduct in words and actions are directed towards any member of the Nuestra Familia. Furthermore, when such improper behavior is directed against another member's blood family. Hey, just so you guys know, some of this shit right here, it's not reading right, it's not flowing right, man. There's no S's in this shit, so I'm just letting you guys know if it sounds funny, that's why. Section 6. Under no condition shall there be any fighting, verbal or physical, between members. To do so is to attack the Nuestra Familia. Therefore, this shall and will bring automatic discipline for all parties involved. Section 7. Every member shall demonstrate proper respect to his fellow Familianos. Petty conduct, both in words and actions, is strictly forbidden as it undermines the very goal of the Nuestra Familia. Section 8. No member shall put material items, be it money, women, drugs, etc., before our familia or his fellow members, nor shall said items interfere while in the line of duty. Section 9. No member shall lie about his position rank when discussing business with another member. There can be no giving of false impressions. Section 10. It is a sacred lifelong duty of a member to guard and protect the Nuestra Familia. He is to fight and do battle for the Nuestra Familia. Having done so, no member should expect he is entitled to any special privileges. All that matters is that we, as members of the Nuestra Familia, are living up to sworn responsibilities. Remember, a true Familiano need not brag or boast of his accomplishments or his past accomplishments. Section 11. All members will have some type of assignment, be it a regiment or special conditions. However, the proper authority must designate said assignment. All members must be fully prepared to handle any responsibility or situation, no matter how menial or difficult, when called for by the proper authority of the Nuestra Familia. Section 12. All members coming into the prison system, regardless of cat status, shall and will automatically have his status put on hold for the purpose of an evaluation and security clearance. Said verification must come from the GOP. All members must clearly understand that this is the will and order of the Nuestra Familia. Article 4, Section 1. The regiment commander, RC, is the member appointed, assigned to the entrusted responsibilities to lead and direct members under their care to successfully accomplish the goals set forth in our laws. Section 1A. The RC is responsible for conduct and discipline of members under his direction. RC has the authority to pass sentence and the administrating of any and all minor infractions of discipline and conduct. Section 2. For this purpose, the SRG and the GOP retain the right to select for the respective individual regiments their own RC. Furthermore, they retain their own authority to dismiss them if, in their judgment, they are not working in our organization's best interest or not accepting or handling responsibilities of leadership. Section 3. Once an RC has been appointed, assigned to a regiment, said RC will solely be responsible for the security and best interests of all members assigned to his regiment. Section 4. No RC shall interfere with the daily operations of any other regiments. Should any RC be transferred from his regiment to another regiment where there is an appointed RC already in place, he shall and will fall into set established commander's authority. Section 5. The orderly running of the regiment's daily affairs shall rest solely with its RC. The responsibility of maintaining peace, tranquility, and security shall be his and his alone. Section 6. In a declared emergency situation, the RC is solely answerable to the GOP. No member shall question the order set forth by the RC personally or through his reserve commander. To question said order could be considered an act of treason, depending on the seriousness of the offense, which the RC will judge. Section 7. In peacetime, as in declared emergency, the RC is answerable to the SRG or GOP, depending on his proper authority. However, in peacetime, once an emergency situation has been resolved and a member feels the proper authority within his regiment were misusing their respective authority against him, due to serious conflict and personal ties, he shall have the right of due process to seek proper relief via the aegis of the GAO. Section 7A. All members must understand the seriousness of said allegations. Therefore, only the gravest of matters should come before the aegis of the GAO, grave being defined as that which cannot be otherwise settled through the member's proper channel. Section 8. The RC shall always be responsible for the warfare and lives of his Familianos under his command at all times. There shall not be any abuse or instructions given that infringe on the safety and security of the member or the Nuestra Familia as a whole. Section 9. It will be the responsibility of the RC to take his reserve commander under his guidance and to brief him on the internal functions of their regiment. Thus shall the reserve commander be qualified to govern the regiment should the need arise due to circumstances beyond our control. Section 9A. Should a disseminating disaster occur, the best qualified member shall take the responsibility on an interim basis until the SRG or the GOP, depending on the proper authority, can formally appoint or assign a permanent RC. Section 10. All other ranks and status within a properly constituted regiment shall function as advisors to the appointed RC when duly consulted. In this, the other ranks and status are constitutionally restrained from affecting the right to run the daily affairs of the regiment by its duly appointed RC. Section 11. Should the proper SRG or GOP, for whatever reason, become incommunicado, solely the General Council as a whole shall have the responsibility to see that each RC continues to work and govern within his constitution. Article 6, Section 1. The primary purpose and goals of this organization will be for the betterment of its members through the building up of its organization in prison and on the streets into a strong and self-supporting organization. Section 1A. The elected power of this organization comes from the free will and consent of government given to its proper offices to administer justice, domestic peace, their general well-being, their common defense, and to secure freedom from servitude to ourselves and our posterity through our union. Section 2. All our members will work solely for this objective, and they will let aside all personal goals and personal feelings until said objectives have been accomplished. Section 3. A member shall honor his commitment to fulfill his obligations to the Nuestra Familia, no matter if he is in prison or on the streets. He will always strive to work in hand with other members to push our organization forward. Section 3A. The rank and file of the Nuestra Familia will always remain a Familiano throughout his career in this organization, regardless of what responsibilities, status, or ranking he has in the Nuestra Familia. Section 4. A member shall always remain a member until his death or otherwise discharged honorably from our organization. It is his sacred duty, and he will always be subject to putting the interest of our organization first and foremost above all else. Section 4A. When a member reaches his 50th birthday and has given 25 years of continuous, loyal, and dedicated service, he will be given the General Council, the alternative to apply for semi-retirement. Semi-retirement being defined as honorary membership to function within our familia in less arduous affairs. Furthermore, while his mental capacity remains strong, he may continue to serve as an advisor. In other words, they'll put him in they'll give him a modified role within the organization as an advisor. There is no pension. You don't get a fucking pension and a paycheck when you're 50 years old, man. It's a different kind of fucking semi-retirement. Section 5. Expulsion shall be automatic for any member turning coward, traitor, or deserter. Even so, the right of due process must be protected before revoking membership, honor, and any benefits entitled to said member from the Nuestra Familia. Section 11. In order to invoke Article 5, Section 5. Said members must be assured due process. All rights must be protected, exercised, and exhausted to the fullest. Even in the gravest of matters, they must pass the most critical of reviews. See, that's what I'm saying. Where was that motherfucking GAO when I needed that critical review in the gravest of matters? That motherfucker was AWOL because he sure wasn't communicating with them cats in the county jail. Section 7. All present members in the Nuestra Familia shall acknowledge said constitution upon reading it. He shall be held accountable for his personal actions if said constitution is not upheld. You guys made it. That was the whole constitution right there. Throughout the years, that constitution right there has been condensed. That's not the version that I was taught on. The version I was taught was on. There was only 3 short articles. But I know it was dry, but I had to read that shit, man. Fuck, I felt like I was reading an inauguration or something, man. That shit's so fucking detailed. But anyway, that concludes this chapter.